What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect. Today we're going to take a look at the M19, the spiritual and numerical successor to the M18 and the M17. There are a few things that you need to know about this device before you buy it, including breaking one of my golden rules when it comes to buying Chinese handhelds. Let's take a look. First, I want to say how amazing this is that this came in a Christmas box. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. It is the correct box because it does actually say the device on the outside, so they just used this box in order to ship it. Inside here we do have the box and the device. Nothing else in the box but this cool piece of plastic paper. Woohoo! Now there has been some questions about who actually makes this device, and yes, it is SJGAM. They have made, again, the M18 and the M17, and they like to put PlayStation on the cover of everything. This one I haven't seen in the ads this time, so maybe that's why people are confused. Kind of an interesting box here. We did get the purple color with no memory card, and we'll get back to that here in just a minute. On the back here, you can't really read anything. Yeah, the more I zoom, the harder it is to read. I'm farsighted, so maybe that's why it's easier to hold it far away, but it is almost impossible to read. But it does have all those cool little flukes that most of these devices have. I'm including some of the specs on here, which may or may not be correct. I'm not really sure, but that's nor here nor there because we do have a spec sheet for it. This does play up to PlayStation Portable like their other devices, so I am confused as to why this one decided that they weren't going to put on the box. Maybe they got in trouble from Sony. I don't know. But it does have a stick layout for PlayStation Portable, so maybe, kind of, sort of. We'll take a look. Box is open here. We're going to pull the device out. In here we do get some instructions and a USB Type-C cable. That is all that's in here, and the bottom does not get removed. So if there's any questions, no, the bottom does not come out of this. We do have some scratch paper. One side is in Chinese, other side is in English. I actually had to contact them possibly about using this warranty clause here, but it says that you can only use it 7 days from the date of purchase. I don't even think it had shipped out yet 7 days from the date of purchase. In fact, I'm almost positive it hadn't. So the other thing is you have to get a signature from the seller, and they don't sell any handhelds directly from them. You have to buy it through a reseller, so you have to get a signature from that reseller before you can sign it. And one question that might get a little dicey here in America, on your warranty card you do have to put in your sexuality. They took 2 lines to spell it out, so maybe they wanted to
2 hours later.
Alright, we'll pull her out of here. By the way, very nice box in comparison to some of their other ones for a cheap handheld. So here's our device. Get a quick little look at it. We'll start this by doing what we normally do and go through the I/O here real quick. On the top we do have a micro SD hole. We do have an HDMI out hole, which is pretty awesome to have a little HDMI hole on here. And we do have our power switch. It is a slider switch, which is pretty dope. We do have more to talk about on the back here than we normally do. This is where our volume keys are. Kind of awkward. Was it the XU10 that had them back there? I can't remember. Maybe it's the power buttons. We have seen some switches up here, which just leaves you more room on the device, so it kind of makes sense, I guess. I can track with that. We do have our shoulder buttons. These are nice and flat. I mean, if you want to compare these to anything else out there, these are some good and flat ones. You take your R36, for instance. Look at how much you got going on there with the big old knuckle on there and then the shoulder buttons. These, they don't have the protection of the knuckle, but they also don't have the bulk. This actually will fit in your pocket better. Also, it's a little bit smaller. So we do, again, have our shoulder buttons and a removable battery on the back here. On the left-hand side, now this is maybe where you'd think where your volume button would be, but it's not. They just decided to keep this empty. And then on the right-hand side over here, empty as well. Now this kind of has some reminiscence of the M18 where all buttons were on the bottom. And speaking of the bottom, we do have a 3.5 hole and a Z hole for charging. On the front here, we do have our face buttons, and they are kind of stiff. They actually almost move slowly. It's kind of I don't know how to explain it, but they're not quick movers like you would think. Like maybe just the bounce back, the spring isn't great, but they do feel like they do need a little bit more pressure than they normally would. Also, if you see my Y here, I don't know what's going on with that Y there. It's not quite all there. We do have our start and select buttons down here. Now these are clicky. Also, back to the shoulder buttons. Very quiet. So start and select here are clicky. We do have our D-pad. This is a very stiff D-pad. Is it playable? Yes. And actually what's really weird is I'm waiting for it to go under the mold. It hasn't yet, but it actually almost makes it really easy to do stuff. It has a very small dish in the middle. Prefer a little bit more dish. It does have a good feel to it. I might be in the wrong spot, but it has a good feel to it. And we do have a Joy-Con style joystick, and this does have L3. So pretty neat there. I think these two probably should be swapped. I kind of see what they're going for though. And this will play PSP, so this is kind of a decent layout for PSP. Not my favorite, but it would work better maybe than some. What really screws me up on this, I'm getting so used to these joysticks being in the wrong spot and being on the bottom. But if you know one thing about this company, they like to play 3D games, or at least I'm assuming they do, because in all their devices, that joystick is always in a position for it to be joystick dominant. Just a little thing I noticed. And then we do have a screen cover here. Let's see. Nah, not that satisfying, but it's still nice not to have it on there so we can see the screen. Now is where it gets interesting. We're gonna fire this device up. So I ordered mine without a memory card because I always like to put my own ROMs on. I don't need to get hacked ROMs off the internet. I've got plenty of ROMs. Problem is the operating system is on the memory card. So there is 4 gigs of internal storage on here, so I'm not sure why they didn't load it on here. But I did notice that on the M19, I actually tried booting it up without a memory card in it once. I don't know. I'm gonna keep calling this one the M19 because it's bigger. On the M18 here, and when you turn this one on without a memory card, it does the same thing. Both are running EmuELEC 4.3. I have not tried it on the M17. This is also running EmuELEC 4.3. Let's find out. And I just put my stock card back in there because I'm working on changing over some custom firmware right now. So we get some ideas here of what we got going on. So they all have this same thing, which means this is just what runs on their SoC. Nothing else is just the base for the SoC. So I don't have a way to run this device if I were a normal consumer. I would have gotten this device, and because I ordered it without a memory card, I would have no way to operate it. Now, we can kind of do it a little jankily, and we're going to steal the memory card of the M18 just for the purpose of firing this thing up. This is going to be a really short review, by the way. I did reach out to the seller of this device, and they are trying to get a hold of the manufacturer for me to figure out where we go next. I'm hoping that they'll just publish the stock firmware files. That would make everybody's lives easier beyond my own, but you need to break my golden rule if you order this. I don't know what the minimum memory card is. I think it's 64 gigs. You need to order it with a memory card, or the device is pretty much unusable. It's just a bunch of like coin-op games that they use over in China. So this will give us the ability to load the device up, but the screen is smaller, so none of the aspect ratios are going to be correct. Like I said, this will be a short video, but at least you know we can test to see that it works, even with all the incorrect settings. It's also set up for dual sticks, which is one of the directory files that's actually baked into EmuELEC. And like, it doesn't know what the battery is doing. Like, there's a whole lot of things wrong, but it still has no settings or anything in here. I do have my card here for the M18 already modified with some of the files for like N64, PlayStation, stuff like that you can do by changing out some of the directory settings. And I can leave a link to how to do that down here in my thingamabob. There's been some additions added from the Retro Handheld Discord from a couple of different users, including Zoo. Probably just add a link to Zoo's because his has a link to the other ones as well. If you have an M18, they'll work on there. I'm assuming it'll work on the M19 once we get a memory card because it's obviously trying to run it the same, and they both do run on EmuELEC 4.3. So we're just gonna make this real quick. I'm just gonna open a couple of games just so you can see that they work, but they're not gonna operate correctly. And if you're familiar with how locked down this system is, we won't be able to really make any changes. It's not even putting the wheel up to tell me where the game is selected on here. It's just showing me the pictures over here. You know, and before we get too far into this, I'm just gonna go through the specs on the device real quick. That way we kind of know what we're walking into and what kind of performance we should expect, and then we can kind of see what performance we are getting. I think that'll make some of this make a little bit more sense. So I'm gonna throw this up here on the screen. This is running Linux with an EmuELEC build, supposedly, unless you don't get a memory card, then it doesn't have a build. It has a 3.5-inch IPS display at 640 by 480. It is running an RK3566 quad-core Cortex A55 at 1.8 gigahertz. Should be decent for high FPS, even on N64, with a Mali G52 GPU. It has 1 gigabyte of DDR4 RAM. It has 4 gigs of internal storage, which, again, I think they couldn't store the operating system on the device itself, but they neglect to do that, which is why you need a memory card. The battery capacity is 30,000 milliamp hours. It uses a 5-volt 2-amp charger, and it's through that C hole right here on the bottom, and that is a USB-A to USB-C that came inside the box. With its peripherals, it does have the 3.5 hole for your headphones, and then it does have, again, that HDMI hole right up here on the top, along with a memory card hole that is empty right there next to it. Well, I guess it's not empty right now, but was empty. I found that this plays very similarly to the M18 before you do the modifications, which is kind of interesting because I don't know if the modifications just don't take, because this shouldn't even work on here. I have tried 6 different versions of EmuELEC on here. I have gotten none of them to work. I'm downloading 2 different versions of EmuELEC right now, and we're gonna see if we can get one of those to work. This M18, it will not actually allow me to clone the card. It has an error every time. It's not conducive to the situation when I need to clone it. I've tried multiple times, and I haven't found the stock firmware online other than, you know, finding some of these add-ons that they have for it. Gotta remember that the gas pedal's on the back here. So one thing I found with these shoulder buttons is they're really nice because they're so nice and flat, and you don't have that big thing on the back, so it makes it more pocketable, right? Also, really hard to use. Really hard to differentiate sometimes, which is which. There needs to be like a 2mm buffer in there where like shoulder buttons are different heights, I think. So as you can see here, N64 still not doing great. We don't have a lot of options here. Now we can make some changes, hacks that we put in here. A lot of them don't even show up. I just way overclocked the CPU. We're gonna see if we can get this thing to operate right. Oh, look at that. It's close, real close. Oh man, now it's slowed down. So with overclocking the CPU, you can get this pretty close. The frame counter is not working though. I've got the frame counter on. So we are getting some skipping here still a little bit. We could probably change the frame skip on here now with the hack on here. I'm assuming that we're gonna get really crappy battery life and it's gonna get hot. It makes this game almost playable if I could drive. And so now it's kind of weird to have the D-pad on the bottom. It's almost easier to use the joystick when it's on the bottom than it is to use the D-pad down there. This is definitely joystick centric, not D-pad centric. All right, so that gives you a little bit of a feel. Once we do a little overclocking, I wish I could see the frame rates. I'm gonna guess we're at about 22 FPS right now. All right, so we're gonna go try a PSP game, and then we're going to be done, because I don't want to try out a whole bunch of stuff on here that doesn't matter. I brought this out with me and didn't really get to do a whole lot with it because of the shape that's in. I got to work like it normally plays. It's kind of baked into this chip where they did a whole bunch of modifications to it, like with shaders and buffering and stuff. So it's not a huge deal. When I find a racing game, they're usually the easiest way to determine, but not an option, I guess. What do you think of this layout? Do you think that this is something you want to play with a 3566 in it? I mean, it does have the power to be able to play some of these systems. What do you think? Would you play with it with this kind of power? Do you think that the sticks are kind of weird? I understand why there's only one. Rarely do we ever use the right one. I know when I was doing the DR35 Plus, it took me a couple of days until I took it apart to realize the right stick wasn't even hooked up. I would have never known had I not pulled it apart. Well, the good news is it looks like my download of EmuELEC just got done. The bad news is I thought the D007 Plus had a 3566 in it. Looks like it has a 3266 in it, so I'm not sure if it's going to work, but... So it does play pretty well. The audio, everything is fine right here, but it will have its moments. And without being able to make any changes, you can't really fix that. But if we could change some things with this chip in here, PSP should be no problem. Dreamcast, N64, we should be able to play all of them pretty well. Let's try out that EmuELEC build and just see real quick if it actually will work. I'm going to say we have a 20% chance of this working. I've already tried, I think it's half a dozen EmuELEC builds, and I just haven't got one to work yet. But I thought that this device I was taking this from it's a 3566, so I'm not sure, but let's find out. It's loading. Frick. Nope, still didn't work. My next option would be to take one from a 351V, but that's a 3326 as well, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. Hopefully they get back to me here in the next day or so, and then I can make a gameplay video for you guys and maybe actually show you some of the features on this once I actually have it working the way that it's meant to work. So I think we're just going to leave it right there for today. First off, I just want to thank all of you who come and watch my videos. It's pretty freaking awesome. I love it. I love the community. I love that you guys leave me comments. I like being able to answer you guys' questions, things like that. So I really do appreciate you. What do you guys think about this handheld? Do you think that this is something that you might pick up? Do you think that the layout's goofy like I kind of do? I understand what they were going for, but the majority of the systems on here are still going to be D-pad centric, so I'm not sure what the thought process was there. But anyways, that's all I got for today. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, share this video with your friends, because sharing helps grow the channel, and that's what we do around here. We help each other. Also, you want to share it before your mom does, because she's usually on that. And while I still got you here, there is a subscribe button floating around on the screen up there, and also a couple of videos that YouTube says you're going to like. Hopefully they're mine. I don't even know where they're from, but they're taking it based off of your view history. So do us both a favor and click on it, and let me know how it goes down in the comment section down below. See, look at that. We're just wrapping it all right back around. But anyways, that's all I got for today. I'm out. Bye-bye!